You're listening to Dirty Feet, a podcast from No More Radio.
Vous écoutez le podcast Dirty Feet sur les ondes de No More Radio.
Hosted by,
animé par
Allison Burns,
JD Papillon
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna move you.
This week, we're bringing you an episode from the Vancouver Fringe Festival. We're here on Granville Island, which is the main site for all fringe activities here in Vancouver. There is a secondary site, which we are performing for Body and Light. And, of course, some bring-your-own venues that are scattered around town. For now, though, we're going to be speaking about other people's projects. But, of course, we've got some dance artists and some theater artists lined up to talk to us about their movement-related works as part of the Vancouver 2014 Fringe Festival. We're going to be starting with Mr. Ryan Caron from the show Puss Reboot. And I'm just going to take the opportunity to make note of a fun link. Back in 2012, in December, we had Stephanie McKenna and Eleanor Young on to talk about Puss in Boots, which is their pantomime production that was taking place at the Hudson Village Theatre. And that was one of my favorite episodes. It was one of our first episodes ever, and it was just such a fun time and really kind of a learning experience for me. But back to what we're talking about today, the Puss Reboot, which is actually kind of a bounces off of Puss in Boots, but has definitely taken its own kind of approach to this story. It's a multimedia kind of production. Perhaps, Ryan, you can give us an overview of what the show is.
Sure. Bouncing off the fairy tale is a good way to put it. Our writer, Emily, took a lot of, I guess, Blade Runner, a lot of science fiction, a lot of genre tropes. And with her, we were really experimenting with what of all those different extremely stylized storytelling devices could we mesh together and blend together with this other very, very stylized, very classical, well-known genre, fairy tales. So Puss in Boots, the storyline, was our starting inspiration, and we built layers and layers and layers of character and character type and trope and really relationship on top of that framework structure of the often very shallow characters of fairy tales told a million times over a million different ways. The intention of making something very very different than what you usually see in a narrative theater piece.
And we're lucky to be speaking with you, Ryan, because your background is actually you have some kabuki dance performance in your history. Do you want to tell us a bit about your training both in theater and kabuki?
Of course. So I've been studying kabuki dance performance for... I'm going on my 6th year now, I believe, with the company Tomoe Arts. I study under Colleen Lanke, whose dances under the name Fujima Sayu with the Fujima family. She is a Natori dancer who studied in Japan under Fujima Yuko and Fujima Shogo. And it's a style I stumbled into. I met Colleen in university when I was doing all sorts of Broadway-style performance and goofy musicals and little jazz and modern pieces. And I just fell in love with it instantly. It's a style that is so precise and so mimetic in its movements that it blended naturally with the physical theater styles that I'm really inspired by. Everything down to fundamental lab and movements, analyzing and breaking down how the body articulates is my favorite way of approaching theater. So that all meshed together nicely, and yeah.
Personally, I find it very uncommon to bump into somebody who's studied kabuki. Is that different here in Vancouver, or is it of your experience? Are you doing something pretty unique?
It's a lot of dumb luck that brought me to this form. It is unique, especially in Canada, especially in North America. There's 2 dance teachers of this style in the city. Colleen's the only one taking new students anyway, as the other teacher, I believe, is quite elderly and practices for her own interests. And in North America, there's maybe half a dozen similar teachers and disciplines that I've ever encountered. Maybe one down in Seattle, certainly some in Hawaii, actually. But as far as Canada goes, this is about it for this particular lineage and form, at least.
Now you're directing this production, and I'm wondering how this comes in a creative process for you. How does it blend with the rest of your theater training?
Of course, I mean, a piece like Puss Reboot, it's not a dance piece at all. We do have fight choreography and some very pre-planned, careful movement. But my dance background and training and interests always play into process for me when creating a new work and working with an actor. Again, I came from physical theater background before even dancing, and the technique and precision by which we study choreography in kabuki, it's an oral tradition, and we learn by learning dances. There's no routine. There's no warm up. It's very much a learn by doing form. So every rehearsal, every lesson means learning a story and learning how to tell that in extremely codified ways with my body. And many of these stories, these choreographies, are hundreds of years old and have been passed through dozens of minds and artists over generations. So all the text work, all the character work, what anything means is largely lost. So I, as a dancer, have to practice discovering meaning in those movements and making very, very precise choices. And when I'm as an actor, and more when working with actors as director, when we're blocking out movement or when we're discovering a physicality of a character, I approach it similarly to how I come to understand the body and the personality of a character in a dance piece, as most kabuki pieces are a theatrical performance of a character and a story told within that codified language. And the practice of finding a person in posture and in very precise movements of a hand, of a subtle shoulder drop, allows me to see the value in that subtlety in a physical performance in Western theater, in any physical character, and to look for that same level of precision. So with Puss Reboot, for example, with Sarah Harrison, our actor playing Puss, the cyborg, we spent a large swath of our rehearsal time breaking down what does the body of a cyborg move like and perform like, and what are the trappings and the tropes of that. And when she's freed, when she's rebooted to herself, what is available to her now that was restricted before? What is now free versus controlled? And we did it in broad strokes, in movements, improvisational exercises, as well as in very fine, precise moments of, what are you doing with that glass? How are you holding it? How is it different in these personalities? And really nitpicking the intention behind that. Sarah especially is a wizard with text. She's character driven and instinctually understands those backgrounds. So it was such a fun exercise for me to throw something completely different at her as a challenge to find the other half of that character.
So you would say that Puss Reboot is a very character-based work. The work is very centered around this character of Puss, and you speak of the cyborg. So what was the inspiration in kind of creating this Puss in Boots story and taking it into this very fantastical sci-fi realm?
It's hard to speak to specific inspirations. It's something our writer and our producer, my co-director Amanda, so Emily and Amanda, have been gestating for well over a year. And I think science fiction and these characters, these types, cyborgs, the corporate businessmen who we have, the young idealistic rebel who could fit out of Les Mis or any number of old Wedekind or Henrik von Kleist plays. These are recurrent human tropes retold with new technology, with new dressing, and enmeshing a modern genre like sci-fi with a classical genre like fairy tales. We strip apart the Miller and the Industrial Revolution that were the vehicles of the time and replace it with something that's new and challenging to the awareness of a modern audience, science and personhood, and the blurring lines between personhood and identity, and if a computer can work like a human, then is it a human? If a cyborg is a human but it's used as a computer, then what of that potential human? These really weird questions that didn't exist, but I think still connect with the moral quandary of classic fairy tales that is iconic of classic fairy tales.
And all of this is brought to life by movement through this character development.
That's the goal. Now, this work it's 30 minutes. It's extremely tight and short. It was conceived as, I think, a 45-minute or half-an-hour play, rewritten as a film, and finally, through dumb luck, we got a waitlist slot that was half an hour, so we had to prune and prune and prune. And what we preserved of this piece was the relationships and the big characters of the three lead characters, as well as two small supporting characters played by one actor who takes three roles. I had no work to do with Andrew, who plays Jed, the brother, the ogre, as well as a few supporting roles. He's an instinctual character performer who just morphs himself as much as possible. But with Puss, with the cyborg character, it was so important to me to find as many nuances of subtlety as we could fit in a piece of this length. I think we chose, whenever necessary, to prioritize character and relationship and presentation of that aesthetic over plot because of the size. So we lost a lot of the story we initially meant to tell, but we used that story to create characters who we hope are engaging and intriguing and a little mysterious and have a depth that is layered and shares with you something of the moral and the story without a ham-fisted presentation of that plot, of any messages that we may have snuck in and around.
How does your creative process change or alter when you're working with dance as opposed to working with theater? Do you work very similarly, or do you kind of change your mannerism of coming at a piece in creation?
The biggest difference for me is text. When I'm working with dance, text is not my the first language, and in a kabuki piece, I hardly comprehend that text. I can pick up keywords, I can pick up key beats, and my teacher highlights those moments. But the text in the music is first a benchmark for me, for marking pacing, for marking emotional pacing and rhythm of a piece. And later, once I understand the choreography and once it's living in my body, essentially, then I'll go back and I'll review a translation of the text to understand it more fully and add those nuances and that depth. In theater, it's often the opposite. I tend to work from a text first place. But whereas that the mediating factor is the same. I can take text and translate that in my body, or translate that in the actor's body, and in the movements and in the physicality. Or I can take a presented sequence of choreography and from that distill what is the mood and the movement and the personality and of this body. And then I fill in whatever's the blank. So filling in the text that wasn't there before, using that body that I've created, or filling in that movement and that choreography that didn't exist before, using the body and the character that I've created, inspired by the text. So working in two directions, but with the same middle, the same mediating middle of the body, of the dancing body.
Your description of these styles kind of supporting each other is so interesting and intriguing. I'm wondering, because there's a lot of inspiring kind of combinations of different art forms coming together to support each other. Is there something you can point to as inspiration, or another medium that is interesting to you or intriguing to you? Perhaps another style of dance that you are interested in exploring, or other partnerships between mediums that you are excited about?
Mm-hmm. So I'm always interested in the new opportunities created by evolving medium. I mean, I'm on a podcast right now. That's such a new medium, and something I'm so proud of and so excited about in the company that I study with, Tomoe Arts, is our core mandate is to explore a fusion. We teach and we present classical work, codified classical work, and we work very hard to keep that alive and present that to the community who are interested. But we are always striving to do fusion works and new pieces inspired by that classical movement. This summer we did an in-concert piece called Fragments of the Weaver Woman, inspired by Korean poem, using spoken word, using contemporary and classical dance language and choreography in a combination. We've done similar works in the past, and this fall, our next production involves a German poem and this really amazing, intricate costuming. I'm fascinated by Buto. I'm fascinated by new media and meme culture and web series culture. And I think there's a real potential to take advantage of all of those things and smush them together into something I've yet to figure out, yet to discover, but I hope to. That's the practice that I dream of for the next 10 years, 20 years, is putting Buto on a podcast. I don't know. Putting how would that even translate? Putting some kabuki into Harold Pinter, and that fusion that is I don't fall in love with the stories usually of a piece I dance. It's a rare piece. There's so often these dated gendered stories of a woman dying of loneliness because her lover's cheating on her, or some bizarre love stories. And those aren't necessarily my life, but those are human, really resonant emotions that I can learn from and be inspired by, and then learn how to create those emotions and that range and that character, and then tell a ridiculous, goofy science fiction piece with it, or use it in a comedy sketch piece. Last year, I used the movement piece, the movements and the kata of it, and once you get one step past the surface, it's this wild west of language that you can say anything with.
Does Nick Knock Media have future plans? Is it something that we can keep track of and look forward to future productions from?
I hope so. Nick Knock is it's a lovely vehicle with that driving motif of new media, new work. Our producer and artistic director Amanda, my co-director, her whole field of study was digital media and theater, working with Theater for Living, formerly Headlines Theater, working with projections and filming of live performance and interactive live digital experiences. I bring a very different classical background to the company, and I try and bring that every opportunity I can. So we're always looking to mesh things, and we're always looking to create something new from all of our wanton pop culture and classical conservatory backgrounds. And I actually don't know what's next, but hopefully it uses all this stuff still, grows it.
It sounds like what you're talking about is this very exciting interdisciplinary approach, which I feel, from what I've heard, is incredibly present here in Vancouver, especially in the arts, is this incredible interest in expanding past the form of art that you're comfortable in, and just trying out everything you can and seeing what can feed your process and who you can collaborate with to really push your work. So that sounds very exciting, the direction that you're taking.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly a special part of Vancouver culture. I mean, our company has often collaborated with Shakti Dance, a Bharatanatyam Indian dance company. I have the unique experience of being a koken stagehand for a Bharatanatyam piece, which may have never ever happened before. And yeah, it's just a magic mixing pot of cultures, of people bringing cultural backgrounds and sharing them. I mean, I'm a Caucasian Canadian from a Francophone background, and I am studying this rich Japanese lineage. And it's presented with so much respect and passion by the people I get to study with that I feel permission to learn and permission to discover. And that, I think, attitude of community lets us work together so much more generatively.
Well, Ryan Caron, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. We've been speaking about Puss Reboot, your production at the Vancouver Fringe Festival. And have a great run.
Thank you.
Is there a little sound bite that we can get to give some atmosphere for the piece?
We use in the piece the works of local artist April Fool Childrenhood, and our designer David Cowling is an artist who I've worked with in the past, who I really love, and I'd love to share a piece that we sample in our soundscape in the play. It's called Monster, from his debut album.
moving on with our coverage of the Vancouver Fringe Festival and the movement or dance works that are a part of it this year, we're going to be speaking with two ladies who are performing in the work Idola. This is a cast of 17 inspired by Shakespearean characters, female characters. We're going to be speaking with Tasha Coote and Kelly Shackelford, who are two of the performers in this production. This is a site-specific work that's actually happening outside here at the Granville Island site, and as far as I understand, includes a few different locations as you take your audience on a journey. So the two of you are performers in the work. Are you also participants in the creation for the work?
For the whole piece, every actor really had the ability to create their own, most of what they worked on. Most of the actors were given monologues, so that was based on what the director did, but then there's individual creative loops that each actor gets to do, each character has. And so each actor created their own loop and brought their own, creative flavor and their own talents to the project with that.
Okay, and you're saying actors, are these, is everybody on board primarily an actor or primarily a mover, or are they trained in both?
I'd say that not everyone is... the director took, she's a high school drama teacher, so she took some of her students as well. So definitely building your experience as an actor. So they're coming into being actors, but yes, she took specific people for what they could do. So she knew that Tasha and I could dance, so she put us in roles that would be able to be portrayed through dance and movement, and where she knew some other characters she wanted a singing aspect. We have an opera singer doing her part. So she knew that everyone could bring something to the table, whether it was acting, dancing, singing, hula hooping. We have, what else do we have? Some comedic skit. Yeah, so everyone could bring something different and new. With a cast of 17, there's a lot of interesting new things.
Lots of talents. Perhaps to just get an idea, too, of the general structure of the work. You were talking about these fairies, as in fictional fairy characters, not as boats, which I previously misunderstood since we're on a little island here. But what is the structure of the piece? You were saying you have to repeat yourself 3 times. You kind of, every production, run through 3 groups of audience members, yeah?
Yes. So the piece is basically guided by multiple different fairy characters, and there's 3 acts to the piece. The idea of the play is one of female entrapment. So at first, you're guided in a group of about 9 people with one of the fairies through each of the performers, and every group goes on a different route. And then in the second act, people are allowed to disperse and freely explore the space as they so choose.
And then the third part, everyone is brought together to the characters, and we are then released and freed from our entrapment. And we do symbolically through taking off. We all have a ribbon somehow tied on us, and the audience then takes that ribbon off to symbolically free us. And then we are able to join the whole group of women, and we finish the show with a song.
I have to say, you're making me think a lot of the Sleep No More production that takes place in New York City, the one that's based on Macbeth, and it's in a warehouse. And there's no text in the work, and you kind of follow the characters around, and it's a very interactive kind of production. You look like you don't know what I'm talking about. So.
I've heard the name come up multiple times in this production, so I think that might have been a bit of an influence for it, or an indirect influence.
Very cool.
Yeah.
But I guess then we can talk about the theme of using all these Shakespearean female characters and how literal or abstract they are in this production. Like how recognizable are these characters?
That's been something I've been grappling with a bit myself, because I'm very familiar with a lot of Shakespearean plays. Does someone who has never seen anything Shakespeare before, doesn't know Shakespeare, can they come in and recognize what's going on, what conflicts are there. And I think with a lot of the characters, we have a lot of really, really familiar characters that people would know, like Lady Macbeth. I play Titania. I don't know how recognizable that is, but Midsummer Night's Dream tends to go on. Lavinia is a little more obscure. But, Ophelia, Cleopatra, yeah. So there's a lot of really familiar characters with familiar stories. And the ones that don't have familiar stories, we have the fairy explain sort of their situation and what's going on for them. So hopefully it's accessible to all audiences.
Maybe you could speak a bit about the development of your characters in the form of movement, which is what you both are focused in this production. So how did you take that character that you were given and then develop it through movement?
Well, my character is Lavinia, and she comes from the Titus Androgenes, I think it's called, Shakespearean play, and I'd never heard of it before. And her character she's a daughter of a king, and she's trapped in her role as a helpless kind of female. She gets raped, and her tongue gets cut out, and her hands get cut off. And so my interpretation of that character, agreed with by the director, was to, with movement and dance, to represent how she is trapped in, she's not able to speak, and she can't let people know who her people are that raped her. So she's not able to verbally portray that or even write it out. And so through doing that, I'm doing movement that it shows distress, it shows vulnerability, it shows to the audience how I'm caught in my role. Yeah.
So you took kind of a specific element of who this character was and really dove into that to portray her in that way.
Right. Yeah. I took her role of being, so to speak, destroyed, and at what she felt like afterwards, to show how she was a woman trapped in not being respected, not being able to, defend for herself, and showing that through movement. And I'm in a sand pit the entire time.
Wow.
So, yeah. And so actually in the end, I then tell who my, what did I call them? Abusers, I guess.
Abuser,
yeah. I then write it out with my feet. So then through the sand, I tell everybody, the audience, who they were.
So I took a really different approach. I play Titania, and I have a dance partner, a male dance partner, who's playing the role of Bottom, who gets transformed into sort of a donkey-human hybrid. So I approached it from having another animal to play off of, and playing off that sort of, the two different animals. So all my movements come from something that I thought a spider would do, because I'd never seen a Titania that had that sort of movement quality, and I've seen it before, and I thought it was really, really interesting. So yeah, all my movement comes from that place of what would a spider do, and then with the Titania Bottom dynamic, there's a lot of love there, but there's a lot of confusion as well. So it was creating sort of almost a storyline to be dancing out that shows just enough love in the right places, just enough affection, but also is a little bit, almost abusive, or shows that true confusion from both characters. From Bottom's confusion of, what is Titania doing? Why is she throwing herself on me? To me, literally, physically throwing myself onto the character of Bottom as much as I possibly can. So lots of climbing movements and big throws, big lifts. Yeah.
And you worked, you're performing this in an outdoor site?
Yes.
Yeah. How was the process of creating that in a site-specific environment? Did you work in that site during the creation process, or was it something that came after the work was created and then moved into the outdoor site that you would be in for the Fringe?
50-50 for me. I'd say my piece has two sections. There is sort of the acting section of Titania and Bottom starting to appreciate each other and love each other. And then there's an improvised partner dancing section that happens afterwards. So none of that improvised partner dancing was really something that we could work on until we got out into the space, because what you can do in the dance studio, what you can do with dance shoes on, is so completely different from what you can do on dirt. I'm wearing Vibram 5 fingers, but they're very sticky to the floor, so I feel like I'm dancing in sap. So for a lot of the moves that we generally do, there's a lot of turning, fast turns, multiple turns. I'm lucky if I can get 1, maybe 2 turns in and make it look elegant. But on the flip side, it's much easier to do jumps because there's a lot more of that traction that you wouldn't have as much in the studio. But definitely that first part, we just, we can't come out to the site all the time because it's a playground. There's kids on the playground all the time. So, we'd come out here and it'd be like 11:30 at night after everybody else has stopped rehearsing and try to get a couple run-throughs in. But mostly it was just, in a living room in a dance studio that we worked on it.
And I didn't decide any of my moves really until I was in the sand pit and working with the things around me. So I have trees around me and kind of stumps that are built up and ledges. So I've kind of worked around that and how would I best, portray my distress to the audience members. So yeah, I work with the sand a lot and, just trying to show frantic movements of trying to get my voice out there, get my word out there. So I waited till I was in the practicing to be able to do that. Yeah.
Something else unique about this performance, a lot of this is unique, but also that all the ticket sales are going to local women's charities, a different one every night as far as I understand it. How as performers in the work and not instigators of the project, how do you feel about being involved in a political work in this way?
I really enjoyed it, and I thought that was one of the best aspects of the show, is that it's based around, women being trapped in their roles and it being able to help centers around Vancouver. It was the director's idea, and she chose each of the venues to donate to each night, but each of them are equally awesome to donate to, so no one has any problems with that. And with so many, that's why she said she could have so many actors in the show as well, because none of us are getting paid for it, so it's, we don't have any money coming in from it. It's all just going to charity. So
yeah, it's great to give back. I was just sort of trying to figure out the financial side of this production, and we can only have an audience of about 25 to 30 people. Anything more than that just wouldn't work for the show, which is quite small. So that only generates a certain amount of ticket sales. And as far as I am aware, I'm not sure who was the donor for this, but the registration fee and all of that was donated for the show. So to be able to give back to the community after the community gave to us to be able to even put this on and be part of it is really big to me. Because without that donation, I wouldn't be able to be doing this.
And is there a future for the Elegant Ladies Collective or for Leslie Stark's projects that you foresee being a part of?
I'm not really sure. I'd love to work with Leslie again. This is my second project working with her, so I'm for sure that some things will definitely come out of this.
And also now that she knows 17 pretty much brand new people almost and knows what each of us can do, that hopefully she'll be able to call on us if she needs somebody to dance or somebody to sing. So it's really nice to meet new people and have that opening.
And just to finish off the interview, we're going to be listening to a piece of music that plays during your solo, Tasha. Do you want to tell us a bit about it and where it came from?
This is a song called Riders of the Apocalypse, and it is written and produced by one of my friends, The Creature.
Thank you so much, ladies. We've been speaking with Tasha Coote and Kelly Shackelford about Idola, which is another multimedia production being presented as part of the Vancouver Fringe Festival this summer. Thank you so much.
next, we will be speaking to Iris Lau, who is the choreographer of the show Definition of Time here at the Vancouver Fringe Festival. Definition of Time is a combination of dance and theater. It sounds very, very beautiful. They speak about memories, voice, thought, emotion. All of this is in the description of this show that's playing at the Cult, which is actually the same venue as For Body and Light here at the Vancouver Fringe. So thank you so much for sitting down with us, Iris.
Thank you so much.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your background in dance and how you came here to Vancouver to pursue dance.
I was born in Hong Kong, and I trained in the Hong Kong Academy for Performing Arts, and it's focusing performance. So everyone in there, we are like a dance performer. And then after I graduated from the academy, I did a few years professional dancer. So I felt, it's probably the time doing other things to make myself more into an artist, being an artist. So I choose the MFA program in SFU, and then that program gave me a lot other than dance. They have like a theater, music, and visual arts training, which I think other than dance, making a performance can be mixed with other things, and then the meaning can be more beautiful. So that's my background. I'm kind of shifting from dance into the theater.
Yeah, very interdisciplinary approach at SFU, and definitely it sounds like you bring that into your work. Maybe tell us a little bit about the concept behind Definition of Time, your show here.
Actually, the concept was from the time I was in Hong Kong. I think it's before I start my study in Vancouver, 2008. So a couple years ago, I made my first choreography about time, and then that is the first one, and then I bring that choreography, apply for my MFA, and then I got in, and then during the time in SFU, I choreographed two more pieces, and then I back to Hong Kong, work on other things. Then it seems like it's a time to give the time an ending. So I was like, okay, give it an ending. So how to end it? Like at that moment, kind of talk about the concept with my friends, and then they say it seems like some theory in arts when you define, for example, you define postmodern. Actually, postmodern, that period of time has already finished. So my friends say, well, just make a show, Definition of Time. So it's like a last one. He say is like the last one of the whole series, but at the same time like a conclusion. So everything comes out is like, okay, let's give it an ending, give the story a full stop.
Wow, so this piece is really kind of a conclusion of your whole study on time as being a subject for your work.
Yeah, actually it was like this, but when I choreograph, there's more content and more other things comes up, and then I felt it's still a lot to study on time, and then like, okay, it's supposed an ending, but should I keep going there? But like, well, let's say for now I felt just a pause on time this project, but at the same time it's really good. Like a memory, how I grow up from the first one and then now to the last one, let's say fifth one.
Yeah, it's always a struggle to kind of try to put a stop to time, I guess, is an interesting point you make on that. And you spoke of interdisciplinary work at during your master's at Simon Fraser University.
Yeah.
How does that interdisciplinary element come into this show, or is it strictly dance? What is the show kind of consist of artistically?
Let's say my background is more dance, so I don't want like totally wash out the dance element. I still love movement, so I keep like movement vocabulary. I will still the main things that I express myself, but at the same time, when I was in SFU, I worked closely with theater area, and then a few of my friends, they are theater director or actor. So they used to do the devising during the process. So it's good like they bring their own idea or they bring their other thoughts about time during the project. So I like it, and I say I encourage my ensemble, like if you think anything's about time or any movement or any scene, movie, whatever, just bring into the rehearsal and then we can share, and then that's how it inspired other people. And also like it's really good because interdisciplinary, I don't I don't limit myself, just like okay, if the theme is dance, it's a time, then just let it around time, and everything around time is like a music. And then I have a friend wrote me the text in the show, so he wrote beautifully. Is like a poet, so I put it in the show, and also it's like a it's just they do some gesture or whatever, they express what they think about time. So everything, I would say the theme is about time, but anything if I felt it can express myself and express the piece, I will just put it into the show, but like keep the main idea, the concept is time.
I mean, of course, there's this link between your medium and your thematic. If we're using a live performance, this very ephemeral thing where you have this run and it happens in the moment and then it disappears, and you're using this format to discuss this thing that is also so hard to kind of hold on to. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that kind of
what my thoughts
mix.
are.
Just the fact that you're using such a medium that is so dependent on time and that it is so time specific to talk about time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I think of that, there's already some, well, kind of like a restriction, but also some advantage when I make this piece is because live performance is always limited on in that moment. So everything happened at that time. What's happened is just that. We cannot change it. We cannot go back, move backward. And then I think this is the beautiful things about dance, because you can watch a live show, but at the same time you can watch the documentary, like a video of the dance, but probably it's different feeling, like you watch it live or you watch the video. And time is when you experience it, you feel, oh, now is the moment we really enjoy. Or you work in a very shitty environment, you think, oh gosh, why is so long time? And then like you still experience that. So everything about the experience, about how we feel everything around us, but it's like an indicator of time. So it's like very good in live performance. You have different elements to stimulate, and then like how you feel that moment in the theater, and then how it interprets time as well. So kind of something beautiful of live performance.
Having a foot still in kind of the Hong Kong industry and dance, we're of course, coming at Vancouver from a different perspective as well, and we're curious what the scene is like here, and if you could compare and contrast and kind of give us some information about the dance scene in Vancouver and kind of where you stand in it, having this other background.
Mm-hmm. It's funny in here. I don't know if I interpreted correctly or not, but I felt here is more theater. So theater is a very crucial element in Vancouver performing industry, but at the same time, they're very open to accept other discipline, like movement, dance, or music, or they just invite some videographer. They do some projection in the show. I really, to be honest, I like it because it's not limited yourself in one film, but let's say compare with my own background in Hong Kong, we are quite limited in the dance. So dance is only movement. So if you do theater, for example, in my show, we sing a song in the show, then they will curious, is it a dance show or this is another show or wherever. But I think here is more open. If an artist, you can express the theme, the concept clearly, you will have your own audience. Yeah, and then more relied on the public, the the society, how they support the art. In Hong Kong, is more like grants. You get the grants from the government. So I will say here I can see more variety, more different artists, more different shows. I'm not sure compared with the east side of Canada, but in here really inspired me. In not only in my own profession, is also how I see dance or how I see a performance.
You spoke a bit earlier about working with different artists on things such as text, and you spoke about a song in your show. I'm curious as to how you work with other dancers, your dancers that you're choreographing on. Are they part of your creative process, or do you create the movement onto them and teach it to them? What is your working process with your dancers?
Actually, in my ensemble, I am one of the dancer, and I have two more dancer. So they are now training in SFU or they graduate from SFU dance program. But I have the other two performer. They were theater actor from SFU program. So kind of half is like a pure dance training, and then the other half is like a theater training. But I do sometimes dancer's body is quite well trained, so we are so good on lying. We tell lies through our movement. But theater actor, they are very true. Their body is like a ordinary body. They just tell what's daily life, what they express it, which is, I think, is a very good materials when I work with them. Those daily movement or how they just do something daily they thought is about time, really one of the inspiration when I create the movement. So that's one thing they inspired me during the process, but at the same time is during the whole process I also create some movement for them, so they will learn a sequence of a set choreography. So after they knows it, some of the movement is the anchor of the movement vocabulary. They have to do it in the show, but they will make their own solo or their own duet by those movements. So kind of an interact process. I give them something, they give me something, and then I give them dance movement, they give me some daily gesture, something like that.
It's very collaborative, and you're very inspired by the specific people that you're working with.
Yeah, actually, I felt the best thing is they very generous. They share their thoughts, they share their movement, they share what they feel. So that's more important. how good the technique they were, because it's not only they copy my movement, it's also how they interpret the whole movement, or how they see my movement, and then from that point they interpret the time. So it's kind of cool, because in Hong Kong, I can't stop compare with Hong Kong, but in Hong Kong we are like choreographer, whatever they ask us to do, just do it. And then like, okay, what's the point of that? We kick the leg so high, or we do a split in the stage, no point maybe. Just because aesthetically it looked nice, so they ask us to do. Yeah, so it's different culture and different thoughts on dance.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I always find it's very exciting to see non-dancers dancing. And you were speaking about working with theater performers, and that the difference in the way that they interpret movement as opposed to dancers that are very highly trained, and how interesting that contrast can be. I definitely really like that when watching a show. I find it very aesthetically interesting. And
last time I really asked my musician to move too, so it's so funny. You see them when they move in a different way. Definitely musician has a different body movement style with dancer or actor, but when he move on the stage is also another aspect, show the concept. And I really think nice to see different type of body, or different type of body. They have their own history, and then their own history, how they affect their movement today. So that's something different. When I feel now I do the show about time, is about how the history, and then how their past time affect now. So it's another inspiration.
So you were speaking about closing this kind of chapter in your study of time with this show, and that this being kind of the last page of this book on time that you've been creating in a way. Do you see yourself going off in another direction thematically? Is there another theme that is kind of calling to you and saying, create this, or what do you see next in terms of your creation?
Other than time, I really like to do some shows about the society. So kind of starting one direction is I do the show is Monopoly. Not only the game Monopoly, is also like talking about the society, how the capitalists or the greedy of the toppers of the society, how it affect the people, how it affect the public, but at the same time how much we use to this structure of our society. So, it is really fun when starting doing that kind of research. I find out, let's say an example like Apple, they do some advertisement. When they do the advertisement, it's like gradually you are affected by the advertisement, but we don't feel that. But until you start really deep research on the capitalists, or research on the modern commercial, how they make the television commercial, then you find, you actually is in the system, you're affected by others. So that kind of interesting, how I jump out from the system, but see the system, how it affects the other people. That's one thing.
So we're going to listen to a piece of music from your show, Definition of Time. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about the composer of this piece.
The composer is Elliot Vaughan. He is a Vancouver bass musician. I met him in SFU also, and then he is very talented. He can play viola, he can play accordion, and also any type of daily object. He can just play a piece of music, a beautiful piece of music. So it's kind of, we have same vision on arts, like ordinary things, we make it into art. So I would say he make beautiful music, he make weird music, but also he make music meaningful, I would say.
Oh, great. Well, we've been speaking to Iris Lau, who's the choreographer and creator of Definition of Time here at the Vancouver Fringe. Thank you so much for sitting down with us, Iris.
Thank you.
So we're back with our last interview of the day. The last show we're going to be speaking with is Cannibal the Musical. And we're going to be talking to the choreographer of that show, Lisa Goebel. And Cannibal the Musical is a very graphic, exciting title that you can just imagine a lot of blood, a lot of cannibalism, a lot of music, perhaps.
Yes.
Am I on the right track?
You are definitely on the right track, yes.
And in the program here, it says that Cannibal the Musical is written by Trey Parker.
That's correct, yes.
Who worked on South Park and also on the Book of Mormon.
Yes, so Cannibal actually is the first project that I guess is open to the public that Trey Parker had written. He wrote it when he was in college, and Matt Stone, who is also a founder of South Park, was in Cannibal the Musical as well. So the film that this is based on, which took place in 1993, featured both Trey Parker as Alfred Packer, who's the lead character, and Matt Stone as one of the miners.
So how did this come into the Vancouver Fringe as a fringe show, and how did you come to be the choreographer of this show?
Right, yes. Well, Corwin Ferguson, who is the lovely director, happened to be obsessed with this movie when he was in high school, and it actually has a bit of a cult following now. There's quite a few people that know the references and know the film very well. And so there's a stage version, and it was his dream to put it on. And finally, with Awkward Stage Productions, he's been able to do that. So we're in the Fringe. Yeah.
So I imagine the choreography is comedic.
Yes.
Choreography. Is this the genre that you have worked in as a choreographer? What's your background in choreography and in dance?
Sure. So I grew up as a studio kid. I did competitions, and since I was a child, just doing all forms of dance. And after graduating from high school, I went to Studio 58, which is a theater program, and choreographed a few shows with them there, and also did a few more musicals, became dance captain of some shows, and from there I've been choreographing both musicals and Shakespeare's, a few things like that in town. As for the comedic, it is quite a comedic choreography. A lot of it isn't necessarily dance, but it is movement-based physical theater work that they're doing as well. There's some animal work. We have a girl playing a horse and a sheep. So they're doing definitely some character animal work. And there's also some dance, can, a little bit of Charleston influence, and in the musical theater genre.
So the choreography that you did for this production was very much based around the script that already existed.
Yes, so the scores are already in the film, so I really listened to those and then took my influence from that. The movement in the movie is quite limited. It's basically the guys in his film class that they've sort of thrown together some movement. So I have some steps which are attributed to that because it's absolutely hilarious. I know that the dance in the movie took the longest for them to film, around 14 takes for some of the, just, trying to get choreography together. So we do have some of that influenced in the stage version as well.
We were speaking just earlier today to one of the performers at the festival about working with actors doing movement. I guess in this context I'm saying versus working with movers on movement. And what is that process like for you in the production of Cannibal the Musical?
Right. So it is a bit different working with actors than it is with dancers. But I find that they have a lot of offers to give, and they bring another level. If maybe a step isn't something they know how to do, but they'll make a gesture or something that maybe suits the character more. So they're able to sorry, that's just a bike going by. They're able to make it their own in their own way that maybe in dance, if I just was to say the steps, a dancer would do it. If I say that to an actor, they're not able to necessarily understand the steps, but they'll give me something else. So it is a different way of doing things, but I think they've done quite well. And I'm also quite lucky to work with such a large cast. For a fringe show, we have 12 performers on stage, and
often in musicals nowadays, there's not a lot of dancing. There's not a lot of ensemble because the funding's not there. So I've been blessed in a way to have such a large group of people to work with.
And timeline-wise, how much time did you have to work with this cast?
Yes, so I had 1 week to choreograph all the numbers. I think they learned music in a week, and then I had a week to do dance, and in between that they did all the acting, and so we had a third week to refine. But yes, it was about 1 week.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That must also affect kind of how you choreograph if you know that you don't have all this time to invest in kind of getting your choreography across to the performers.
Exactly. I usually come in with it all prepared, and then if something needs to be changed on the spot, then I'm flexible with that. But there's not a lot of time in the space to create as a group. If they have offers, then I can put that in, but I come with it all ready.
Having the opportunity to also speak with other artists who are kind of working in musical theater or choreographing for theater, they're it's never the primary focus on a production like that. You're talking about how lucky you are to be involved in this production. Can you speak at all to having to take a back seat as a choreographer, like as an artist collaborating on this project, but understanding the importance of what your contribution is to the larger picture?
I get where you're going with that. So sometimes choreography does take the back burner, especially when you need to focus on vocals and acting, and songs can get cut very easily if things aren't working, and movement can get reduced, especially if someone's trying to sing something and the movement conflicts with that, then the movement obviously gets cut and not the singing. So it's really just learning how to be flexible with working with the other, the musical director, who's Andy Toth, and the director, to try and come to a happy medium. I mean, that's all I really can do, and then fight for the bits that I really want.
Yeah, pick your battles.
Yes, exactly.
Awkward Stage Production Society is the company title that you guys are under here at the Fringe. Have you worked together on previous projects, or is this just kind of been thrown together? Will you be working together in the future?
Right.
What is the outlook for that?
Yeah, this is my first production with the company. They've been operating since, I believe, 2010, and they work with youth to young adults that are in that stage of their career where it's hard to get work because they don't have the experience. I think I will be working with them again. I really loved working with them, and especially working with youth. They have an energy that cannot be matched by any other group of people. So it's been a fantastic time.
And so I assume, maybe from Trey Parker's other work, that this is not a family-friendly show, or is it?
Perhaps family-friendly is not the best way to put it. It does have some coarse language, and yes, so maybe, teenagers and up. Yes, there's some blood and gore, and maybe people eating people. So
a bit of that.
Yes,
yeah.
So you just need to be prepared for that, a la the humor of Trey Parker. So, yes.
And your choreography, your personal work, where is that going after this? Are you involved in other projects? People can follow you, see what you're doing. How can people see what's next for you as a choreographer?
As of right now, I don't have anything planned. I have some shows in talks right now, but I don't have anything right now upcoming. But I'm hoping to continue doing some musicals in Vancouver in the next season coming up. So, yeah.
So we're going to hear a piece of music from the show, Cannibal the Musical. I wonder, Lisa, could you set us up for what we're about to hear?
Yes, you'll be hearing Hang the Bastard, which is the finale number, and it's also the number that has the entire ensemble. They're speaking about the hanging of the cannibal, and whether he dies or not is up to you to find out when you come see the show.
Great. Well, we've been enjoying speaking with Lisa Goebel, who's the choreographer for the show Cannibal the Musical here at the Vancouver Fringe Festival. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
that today will be a day that goes down in history as a day in which justice was truly served. Now let's hang the bastard!
Hang the bastard, hang him high, hoist his body to the sky. It's as nice as a day can be.
Won't you come to the hanging with me?
Turn red, then purple, then blue.
We'll watch from up here to get a good view.
And when his eyes bug out, we'll know it's the end of him and the end of the show.
So hang the bastard, hang him with cheer. We'll make some hot dogs and drink a few beers. And when his tongue rolls out, we'll know it's the end of the show and we all can go home.
But not till we hang the bastard. Hang him here, the most exciting thing this town has seen in years. When his body stops jerking, we'll know
it's the end of him.
It's the end of him.
It's the end of him.
And the end of the show.
Cowbell solo.
Will pop out all over his head.
We'll tickle his armpits to make sure he's dead.
And when his tongue rolls out, we'll know it's the end of him and we all can go home.
But until we hang the bastard, hang him high, hoist his body to the sky, and when his body stops jerking, we'll know
it's the end of him.
It's the end of him.
It's the end of him.
Let's get on with the show.
So this episode, you've been listening to the soothing voices of myself, Alison Burns, and Linnea Gviazda, who's been so generous as to co-host with us while we go across the country and talk about different shows happening, either movement or dance shows at the Fringes across Canada, and also different interviews we've had along the way. We've had the pleasure of speaking with a lot of interesting people with episodes that have yet to be released, so more information on that to come. In the meantime, though, we are going to do our typical wrap-up where we talk about how the For Body and Light tour is going and talk specifically about our experiences here at the Vancouver Fringe Festival. Steph is not joining us today, but we do have Ian Ferrier, who is the spoken word poet and musician, in the show for the first time to actually lend his opinion on our experience here on the Fringe tour.
I have to actually speak.
You are very familiar with microphones at this point, I'm sure. I'm sure it won't be that bad, that painful. But yeah, so we've landed in Vancouver. We've had a couple shows already. We're in a beautiful, I think the most beautiful theater we've been in yet, at the Cultch here in town, and it's just it's like a 200-seater. It's very it's a historical theater, old seats, beautiful, wide space, tall venue. Who wants to get started?
The landing was kind of a shock, I think, just because. The first day we were here, the production people from the theater started yelling at us for throwing water around, which is pretty hard not to do when water is like the climactic moment in your show. So that was a little unusual. And so it felt kind of bumpy here for the first 2 or 3 days. I don't know how you guys felt, but that's how it hit me. And then, but since that time it's gotten better. I love this place. It's so gorgeous. We're getting amazing weather for Vancouver too. Sunlight in Vancouver is like a fantastic thing. So I'm in a funny kind of place. Like I'm dreaming of my own bathtub, which is like 6 days away or something like that. But at the same time, I still want to do justice to this show that we've been doing for so long, you know. Just because I still think it's a really good show, and I'm beginning to dream of what to do next too, you know. So that's where I am. I don't know how you feel. Yeah.
I definitely feel like I would love to put the tour on hold and like go home and use my kitchen and see my friends and then come back.
Yeah, I think it takes me an effort to say, okay, I'm going to really focus on this and do it as well as I can now, whereas that didn't used to be the case, you know. So I think that's just end of the tour kind of, I don't know what it is, just having done it a lot, you know.
Do you mean the actual performance of the work?
Yeah.
I definitely feel like the performance has evolved. I'm taking a lot of pride in the show these days. I feel very like in control of it and of my performance of it, which is not to say kind of zoned out, but it's definitely a meditation of its own.
Yeah, and I've started looking at different parts of it, you know, saying where would I push that? How can I push that? You know, looking for, since we know the general order and the general tone, you know, how can you tweak it to get just extract a little more out of each section, you know? That's fun. That's exciting. Yeah.
There was a moment where when we were doing our tech here in Vancouver, I was trying to conserve my energy, so I didn't want to give my everything in that run of the work. We just wanted to kind of go through the spacing and kind of make sure that it works in the new venue. And I found myself, it was so easy to slip into performance mode that I had to remind myself to take it easy and to turn it off. And that was an interesting revelation, that I'm so used to gearing myself up to that point that it just comes automatically now to be present and to have my eyes open and to kind of project, even in a room of like 2 people that are just there because they're concerned about what we're going to do to their curtains.
I've also discovered that handbilling is a great way to meet people. You can just sort of choose whoever you want to talk to and then come up to them and start a conversation. So that's fun.
Yeah, I think it's being here in our last city. It's really exciting to feel so confident about the show, and I think that's something that happened that we all recognized when we were confronted with the situation where we're in a historic theater, and they really have to be careful about what goes in that space. But you know, we do have 16 liters of water in our show, and that was known ahead of time before we arrived. We purchased a brand new tarp in order to kind of cover more of the stage and try to keep the water a bit more contained. But yet, you know, there was definitely concerns from the theater about it, and it turns out that we could work together and compromise and make it work for everyone involved, which has been really great. But I think through that whole experience, we all had so much confidence in the way we are coming to the table and saying, no, this is important. This is our show. This is a show that's been incredibly successful for us, and I think more so than we had anticipated leaving Montreal. You know, we didn't really know what we were getting into, bringing a kind of mysterious, mellow dance and spoken word show on the road to a fringe audience that's very interested in comedy, very interested in just going to a show to sit back, relax, and laugh. And that doesn't really happen in what we do. So we were nervous about that, and then we realized, well, in fact, there is an audience for that. People are interested in something that's in a way on the fringe of the fringe itself, because it doesn't really fit into the fringe in a lot of respects. And yet it's been so well received. So we come in to our last city with the show. We're far away from the central Fringe grounds here at Granville Island. We're out at the Cultch Historic Theatre, which is by Commercial Drive. Anyone who might know Vancouver's layout, that's a good 45-minute bus ride away. So that's been a challenge, but yet we've come in knowing we have a good show and that the audience that's going to show up is going to enjoy it, and that we're happy with it. And we're working so well together as a team, and I feel like we've gotten to the point on the second half of the tour where, at least for me, every time I get out on stage, I'm excited to perform the show because I'm enjoying every moment of it now. And I feel like it's so much a part of me and a part of us, and we have so much confidence in each other that we can just enjoy that moment. Now we have 4 more shows left, and honestly, who knows what's going to happen after this? And so that's kind of an interesting feeling as well, to think, well, this might be the last 4 times we ever perform this work.
Yikes. That's a huge question in performance too, you know. It's like, where does it go once you've done it? And I still don't know the answer to that, really.
Something else that's interesting that's happened to us since we left Victoria is that we went to Gabriola Island to do a quick performance there. And that really came to mind when you were talking about compromises and adjustments. And I think for myself, and I don't think I'm the only one, I found it very refreshing. We were doing it in a space that was not a typical theater space. It was this beautiful new home that Ian's friend just made 3 months ago. And so, of course, we had to be very respectful of her space, and that forced us to be innovative about how we used the space and what we did with the show and how we structured it differently. And it was so nice to kind of perform it in a way where you had to be very active again and have to be very aware of the space and of each other and the changes, and kind of give it a little bit more life in that way.
And I especially love the sort of just the detail of getting the audience up out of their seats and getting them. In this particular show, the audience had to move 2/3 of the way through the show to see what was going on, you know. And I've always loved that idea. It's sort of that the audience is not sitting back watching, that they're either active in their own minds and how they bring it into their lives, or else they're physically active in where they choose to be and how they choose to see it and how they choose to interact with the space.
What was really exciting to me about that show as well is it kind of brought us back to where we began in the first place, which was in the context of showing up at a random show or space and doing something with the material that we had. And maybe that show was kind of formulated just in words right before we went on the stage, or not even the stage. And so that idea of kind of going back to this site-specific spontaneous mode of performance that we had kind of started with, which was really the root of what For Body and Light began as, was kind of exciting to me. It reminded me of how far we've sort of come with our exploration together as a collective group. And it was just a beautiful moment, I think, to kind of get to reconnect with that side of who we are as artists, which all of us are really interested in, that sort of unconventional performance environment and what can be done with that. Also reaching out to these smaller communities like the one on Gabriola Island, the one in Parsboro, Nova Scotia, where a lot of this work was created or inspired by last August, during our residency there. So there's a lot of parallels to that same environment where you're showing up in a very small community, and they're so interested in what you're doing because it's brand new to them and it's so innovative.
That's what's one of the things that's really exciting to me about working with you guys too, is that it's just I trust you completely to be able to come up with something no matter what the situation is, and I trust myself to do that too. That's something that we all built, you know, and it gives us a lot of confidence that whatever the situation is, we're going to bring something that people haven't seen before, that they're going to be interested in, and that's going to involve a lot of what we know and what we can bring, you know. So.
Any thoughts about coming to the end, other than being ready for it at this point?
I think the moments of the whole tour are gonna, on the plane back, they're gonna start to stack up, and I'm gonna start to see them vertically as all the things that happened, rather than where we are now, and oh God, we have to have this over here at this time or that over there at that time,
I think the entire tour has been such an experience, and I'm personally not flying back with the rest of them to Montreal right away. I'm going back to Vancouver Island and spending 12 days kind of decompressing over there with my family in Victoria. And to me, looking ahead at that, those 12 days, I see them as very essential, I think, because it's a letdown when you do a show and then suddenly it's over. And in this case, we've just, come across the country, being in this very intense situation all together, meeting so many amazing other artists that we can now call, some of our closest friends in a way. So the loss of that is going to be really, really sad, I think. So it's going to take that time to sort of settle, and then really to pick up the pieces and figure out, okay, well, I love being creative. I love working in art, and I hope I always will get to do what I love to do. So how can I continue doing that? And it's only by kind of following through with that cycle of motivation, not falling too down in the dumps after something so high energy and amazing, and thinking, all right, well, how can I do that again? Maybe not the Fringe tour, maybe not for Body and Light, but how can I get that feeling again within an art piece?
Yeah, I personally always like to have something to go to, because I'm not very good at starting from scratch ever. So I'm already thinking of new stuff to do, I think, and what it'll feel like. And taking the experience of this has given me a lot of confidence that the next project will be as good, So that's good. Yeah. Starting from scratch sucks, It's better to have something on simmer and another thing like medium high and something on low, and yeah.
Yeah, I love what you were saying, Linnea. I feel very, very fortunate to have had this experience and to be a part of this project. It's been a real adventure, and it has, given us a taste of, or at least myself, it's given me a taste of a kind of way of living, and it's a really exciting way.
We're really lucky too that everybody in this project brings something all the time. I really trust you guys to cover what you cover, and me to cover what I cover, and everybody to do it so that it works. That doesn't always happen. Often in a tour, there's one person who's like complaining the whole time, or they get sick, or something happens like that, and we haven't had any of that really. We've just had, okay, we got to do this thing, and we all do it. So that's fantastic to me.
It's communication, people. Yeah.
But it's also commitment. It's also, we're going to do this, we're going to do it well.
I think it's also trusting in the project. And realizing that there are going to be down moments. There's going to be a bad review. There's going to be a show that maybe has very few people in the audience. And to, through all of that, still, understand that what you're doing is worthwhile and is interesting, and to be committed to seeing that through all the way, and kind of throwing your entire self into that no matter what happens. And I think we all kind of have that quality in ourselves to really be invested in what we're doing, care about it so much, and know that what we're doing is interesting, and take whatever blows that come our way. And we've been lucky in the sense that our show has been incredibly well received, and we've done really well. But through the highs and through the lows, yeah, we've kind of always pulled through, because we have this one goal, and that's to bring For Body and Light on this tour and to perform it really, really well.
Well, we still have 4 shows left, but as far as Dirty Feet is concerned, that's going to wrap up our coverage of the CAF, Canadian Association of Fringe Festivals, for the summer of 2014 coverage. And also that'll be the end of our updates of the For Body and Light tour that we've been doing alongside the Dirty Feet coverage.
You can also, I'm going to be blogging some of the stuff that happened on a site called litlive.ca, which is the Canadian Review of Literature in Performance.
Brilliant. So if you're hungry for more info about our tour, go check that out. Thanks so much for listening.
Dirty Feet is recorded every week at the Montreal Improv Theatre. Check them out at montrealimprov.com.
Dirty Feet est produit et animé par,
produced and hosted by Alison Burns,
JD Papillon,
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
You can find out more about our show at nomoreradio.com, follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet, and find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast.
Vous pouvez écouter tous nos épisodes sur notre site web ou vous pouvez vous abonner également sur iTunes à notre podcast.
Listen to past episodes on the website or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes.
While you're there, be sure to give us a rating and or leave a comment to help us spread the word.
Tune in next week for a whole new show.